tonight, Lyle.
I'm Lyle, I'm an addict. First and foremost, I want to thank the God of my understanding for truly blessing me, getting me out of the horrors of addiction and bringing me to Narcotics Anonymous. And if I get emotional, it's because I haven't done this in a long time, but the gratitude for those who came before me, stayed, and kept this building and kept it going, I appreciate. I appreciate them. And I got a chance to thank Hank before he went out the door, because what Hank was sharing 2 years ago, I was going through, but I wasn't sharing it with nobody. Nobody. I thought I could handle the situation. I thought if she went to treatment and came back, we could start it over and do it again. I was wrong. It got to the point that the last time she went to treatment, I had to let go. I had to let go. Which in turn started a new chapter in my life. Now, me and Mike was back there kidding, like Mike said, "You're not an out-of-town speaker." I am now because I moved. That's the only reason why I'm an out-of-town speaker. But seriously, I was part of this home group from 2006 to 2020. And stand up, Gordon. Where Gordon's at, that's what I did every year we had this. It wasn't about speaking. It was about a home group opening the doors for other men to get a healing process started. Or continue on with somebody in the sponsee family. And I always sat there and I listened. I listened. So today I get to give you something back in return. My clean date is 2/3/1997, but all I have is today. I don't want no claps for it. I don't want none of that, because Narcotics Anonymous is giving it to me for free. When I came to Pittsburgh, I knew where to go, because the area that I had came from was always holding a unity retreat in August. And these guys came to the unity retreat. And I remember a gentleman, God rest his soul, Bob J. I got a phone call from my girlfriend at that time, talking about, if you don't come home, I'm going to use. So these guys were sitting around the fire having a meeting. So I sat down. And one of the guys said, "What's wrong?" I said, "I got to go home, man. My girl said she's going to use." So he whispered to Bob J. the same thing that I told him. Bob J. came over to me and said, "This is what's going to happen. You're going to go all the way back home. She's going to get you high before you get her clean." So I stayed at the Unity Retreat. You talk about a vision of hope. Someone gave that to me. And the ring was, you can get high just as quick as she can get high. So today I owe not just Narcotics Anonymous, but the sponsee family has kept me embedded, has supported me, has taken me to places I never thought I would go. And met more men than I ever thought I would ever meet. I talked to my first sponsor, and it's good to hear his voice. And he said I was his first sponsee, and he's got 28 years now, and I'm just getting into 24, and he's like, "I didn't think you was going to stay for 1 minute." Because when they were passing the basket, I was trying to be the last one to get the basket. Because I thought if I was the last one to get the basket with the money, I could have the money. So when I was sitting there and we were talking, I said, "Well, what's the basket for?" He said, "Go over and get IP number 24. What's the basket? And I read that, and I found out where the money that we put into the basket goes. Literature. Keeps the doors open. It may at times send a newcomer to a convention. It may help out a newcomer who is struggling in that room at that time. Well, I happened to be one of those people that was struggling at the time, and the basket was going around. And I was part of that home group. And what the home group did for me was, I couldn't pay my electricity. The home group made a conscious decision to pay my bill. It wasn't because I was unmanageable. I just didn't have the money at the time when I got the apartment to take care of everything. And I shared that in the rooms, wasn't expecting anything in return, but the home group made a meeting, called me and said, come get this $110, go take care of your electricity bill. And I'm like, where do you find people like this? You know, my sponsor said, if you open your eyes and you open your ears, we are here. You know, so my motto is like, do the right thing for the right reason, expect nothing in return.
There you go.
Nothing. I don't expect nothing in return. I've been in service since 30 days clean. I continue to stay in service because my first sponsor always said, stay in the middle. But the vision of hope. When Phil told me that was the topic, I ran and got my hat out of the suitcase. The vision of hope. Now, we had a gentleman in Narcotics Anonymous who used to sell this stuff. So I bought 2 of them. And I sent one back to Altoona, and I kept this one. And I was like, oh, I got to wear my hat. Yes, I'll be okay. The vision of hope is some people that came before me and the people who come in behind me. And the people who came before me, like, I'm so grateful that they're still here. I see that hope. You know, when I'm on the media of Facebook and someone's celebrating 40 years, 45 years, I'm like, that's where I want to go. That's where I want to go. But I know it's one day at a time. One day at a time. So my hope is every time that God allows me to wake up and I pray, I work to the best of my ability to stay clean. Helping others, my home group. I was telling someone said about my home group, it's on a Monday, and it's on the island. One way in, one way out, that's it. And I'm like, this feels like the first time I came into Narcotics Anonymous when I got clean and I was doing meetings in my hometown. You had one meeting at night, 2 days off, one meeting at night, 2 days off, and that's how we rolled until people started rolling into Altoona, PA, and started making it bigger. So we went from when I started, we went from 4 meetings. Now they have like 13 or 14 meetings. So I see that area grow. You know, we went from just a basic text meeting to we had a relapse prevention meeting. We changed it to an NA meeting. Then we had It Works How and Why when it came out. And I'm like, okay, this place is growing. So why not stay? You know, it was no longer what's the basket for. It was, you got to stay clean. You got to stay clean. And the neighborhood I lived in when I went to treatment, it was a drug-infested area. When I came out, there was a church there. There was a halfway house there. And I'm like, oh, my goodness, things are changing. But I see it, the God of my understanding was making it okay for me to be able to walk back and forth to do what I need to do to get what I need to get. You know, so this thing, this vision of hope, I take it serious because my life is on the line. I don't know about yours, but my life is always on the line. When I wake up and I start my day, I got to pray and I got to keep it moving. You know, and I was telling some people how I made the transition from Pittsburgh to Washington State, driving with another recovering addict who said, they'll help me drive. It took me 44 hours to get to Washington State. She drove 2 hours. She drove 2 hours. But listen, I'm not mad at her. What I got to see was God's creation the whole way across till I got to my destination. I appreciated life a little bit more.
There you go.
for the beauty I got to see.
That's good.
You know, and I took pictures. I had her take pictures, and I kept the pictures. I'm like, it always reminds me, you know, how life shows up, and you got to do things, and you don't foresee what's going to happen in the future because it's not presented to you, and you have doubts. But I had faith. I'm like, okay, I'm going to go from point A to point B, and whatever happens, happens. So yes, I went to Washington without a job, and when I got to Washington, 3 days later, they called me and said, we have an interview for you. It's at times for me hard to fathom how the God of my understanding just works. I didn't pray for the job. I just prayed that we got there safe, and whatever it's going to be is going to be. You know. But I did the interview. I went back to her place. They called me 2 days later for a second interview. 3 days later, I'm working in a hospital. When I spent the last 21 years working in a DNA facilities throughout Pennsylvania, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. Every facility that I worked at was just starting up new. Every facility was starting up new. So when they offered me the job of working 9 to 5, I said, well, I got banker hours. They said, no, 9 p.m. to 5:30 in the morning. And I said, well, what do I do? They said, we're going to take you to the third floor, to the surgical floor, and we'll show you. I cleaned 8 operating rooms every night.
Wow.
Every night. And it's not a chore. It's a pleasure to do it, because what I know is if any of you guys was living out there and you had to have surgery, I know that room was being cleaned. It's going to be cleaned by me for you to have a surgery. That's how I treat it. That's how I treat that community. Even though I'm not a part of that community, I treat it as they're my family.
There you go.
I treat it as they're my family, and I want the best for them. You know, I was sharing with another recovering addict, like, I've been diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, so I get numbness off and on. You know, and it's from driving, and it's from other things. And I got led to a doctor who is going to lead me to a surgeon who's in the same hospital that I work at. And they said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to work with you. We're going to help you. Because we want you to come back and clean rooms. Because you do it well. They didn't say good. They said well. You know, so when I found out about this, Phil had asked me to speak. And I'm like, I don't know, Phil. They're talking about getting ready to have surgery. I'm not trying to come there with one arm and a sling and then, you know, and all this and that. I said, but I'll call you back. So the doctor came to me and said, look, we're going to put this off until October 25th. So when he told me that, I called Phil and said, I'll be there. I had already had a vacation scheduled in August. That was no problem. So once my vacation's up, now you can reapply for another vacation going into your second cycle. I said, oh, I'm going to the men's conference. I'm going. And I sat and I looked it up and I said, thank you, God. Because he kept leading me to people who was helping me get from point A to point B. And it was awesome. And it continues to be awesome. You know, so really, real quick, back to 2006 when I moved into Pittsburgh. I was in a facility. I became a supervisor because of a gentleman who believed in me, who I only knew maybe 2 weeks. And he said, won't you become supervisor here? He said, because I'm getting ready to step down. I'm like, here? He's like, yeah, here. I said, well, I never thought about being a supervisor. So I went back to Altoona. I talked to my sponsor. He said, why don't you apply for it? So I applied for it, and I ended up coming to Pittsburgh. So what came with that was the people that were working under me were pretty much involved in Narcotics Anonymous service. And I had said to one of the members, I'm like, I'm a DJ. He's like, really? I said, yeah. I opened my mouth when I shouldn't have. Because this is what happened. You talk about fear of the unknown. I never played for a wide variety of people. I only did it for Narcotics Anonymous in our town because it was small and I knew people and we all liked to dance. So this person got me the gig for a Start to Live kickoff. And I'll tell you what, I had butterflies in my stomach. I wasn't sure what to play. But a couple members came up and said, this is what we like to dance to. So I started playing them. I got a little bit better with it. But I'll tell you what, I don't regret doing it. And I always told people, Narcotics Anonymous doesn't have to pay me because I can't pay Narcotics Anonymous back. But my first sponsor always said, if that gig is a business, that's a whole different story. That's your livelihood. Because I've had some home groups saying, look, you got to give back to the fellowship. And I'm telling you, my DJ gig is a business. That means I got to pay for all the equipment. I got to pay for gas to get from point A and for everything else. You got to pay me. I'm not doing it to be rude. I'm doing it to help out the fellowship. And I thank them people for getting me started in that area. Because I changed a lot of things in my life. But it's that vision of hope that you see from others who see something in you that you don't see in yourself. And those things come and you don't know when they're coming, but they come. And this home group, the men's home group, we're always reading The Living Clean, or we're reading something out of the literature. When I first came to Narcotics Anonymous, my home group was the Monday night basic text. We read out the basic text and discussed it. So I've always been literature-oriented when it comes to going to meetings. So the meeting that I'm at now, which is a Monday night in Oak Harbor, Washington, if you ever come there, we're on the island, is a oriented home group of literature. So I've come full circle with literature being part of my recovery. And if you're new today, and the only suggestion I can give you is, please keep coming back. I'm going to be selfish. I need you. Because sooner or later, you're going to share something that I need to hold on to keep me clean. Just like when my mom died in 2013, real quick. Phil was my sponsor. There must have been at least 3 carloads that came from Pittsburgh to Altoona to support me going through my grieving process. I wasn't expecting it, but they showed up. They showed me love. And my sister, who's not in recovery, knew I wanted to go to the convention that same month, the World Convention in Philadelphia. I told myself I wasn't going. I said, I'm not going to go. My sister went out and drew $1,000 out of her account, gave it to me, made me drive to Philly. So when I got close to Philly, I called Philly. So we're in Cherry Hill, New Jersey. I'm like, okay. So now I got to go over the bridge. But I had a place to stay. My first World Convention experience was off the chain. It was off the chain. I met so many people I couldn't remember them all. Clean Time Countdown, all that. If you want to experience some things in Narcotics Anonymous, you got to stay here to experience them. You got to stay here. We're going to go through ups and downs. I go through ups and downs. Like I said before at the beginning, like I was going to do something drastic because of my relationship. I didn't have to do anything drastic. God did it for me. He removed something from me because I couldn't remove it on my own. So when he removed it, I removed myself and got a new chapter in life. So that's where I'm at now, is a new chapter in my life. So I will always do my best to come back to this conference. It has saved my life. It continues to save my life. And he continues, I believe, to save others. So just for today, give yourself a break. Keep coming to Narcotics Anonymous. You will get, like Hank said, the things that other people get. But the only way you're going to get them is you got to stay. I'm an addict named Lyle. Thank you.